Welcome to this episode of the DJ Podcast. My name is Peter Morgan, and in today's episode, I'll be showing you how to use follow actions in Ableton Live to split your tracks into clips, but still play them from start to finish. Alright, so we're in Ableton now. We have a track loaded. It's already warped. And we're going to start by creating our first clip. So we have the track here, and we're just going to simply rename this to intro, as this is going to be our intro clip. And what we're going to want to do is zoom into the very beginning of the track and find where the intro stops and sort of the meat of the track starts. So we'll just sort of jump around. Alright, so we can hear that the intro sort of stops at 33, so it's a 32 bar intro essentially, and we're going to just zoom out and take our end marker, and we're just gonna bring it to the beginning of the 33rd bar. So we've got this 32 bar intro, and we're actually just gonna take our clip here and we're just gonna name it to intro 32 just so we know how long it is. So this is gonna be our first clip, and we're gonna want to have our next clip start at the 33 mark. So we're going to open up our launch options, and you can see now that there's this follow action section. And what we're going to want to do is on this leftmost box, which is the box that you specify how many bars you want the follow action to occur after, we're going to put 32 because it's a 32 bar section. And under follow action A, under this little drop box here, we're going to click next. So it will play the next clip underneath it in the session view after it plays 32 bars. Now I should say that if you start the clip and then you sort of jump around a little bit, the follow action will not work. Each clip must be played for the specified amount of time, or else it will not go to the next clip. So you can't jump around really within the clip if you want the follow action to work. So what we're going to want to do is now, if you're on a Mac, Option drag or Control drag if you're on a PC, and that will duplicate our clip and we can move it into the next scene. But now, we know that it's not the intro, so we're going to want to we'll just move the end marker out of the way to some random spot, and we're going to want to move the start marker to the place where our last clip ended, which in this case is the 33rd bar. And now we'll just sort of play the track and see at what point there is next a change. Alright, so we've got this little like mini breakdown kind of thing here. So we'll just say that that is our first section. Okay, and so what we're going to do is then we're going to take our end point and we're going to say that it's going to end at the 49th bar. So we're here. Got our little mini breakdown here. So we're just going to rename this clip. I'm going to call this mini break. And this is a 16 bar section. So what we're going to do is, you can see we have our follow action here already because we just simply duplicated the clip. So we're just going to now take this and we're going to say that this follow action is 16 bars. So then once again we're going to duplicate the clip. Now we're going to work on this one. So we're going to move our end marker again to some place, out there, and we're going to move our start marker to the end of the last clip, which is at 49. So now we've you can see here just by looking at the track that you've got about 32 bars, and then we get to bar 81 and we've got this new section. So let's just hear what this sort of sounds like. Alright, so we've got sort of the main beat of the song, and then what happens when we get to 81? Alright, so we've got another breakdown. So I guess we can say, alright, well let's put this right here at 81 right before the breakdown. And you can see now this is a 32 bar section, so we're going to go back to our follow action and put 32 in. And now we're going to create again, a new clip simply by option dragging on a Mac or control dragging on a PC. And we're going to move this out of the way. And we're going to move our start marker again to the beginning of the new section. So let's just sort of take a listen here to find when the breakdown ends. It's still in the breakdown here. All right, so right at 1:13, it sort of gets back into the the main meat of the track. So we're just gonna move the end marker here, and that is a 32 bar section. We already have 32 here because of our follow action, so we don't need to change anything, which is great. And now I should say that once you sort of get in the hang of doing this, it all gets quite easy. And we'll I'll rename this one here to breakdown. And this is 32, and I'll just go to here and rename this one, which I forgot to do. Main, and this was 32. All right, so let's duplicate our track again, and now we're just going to move the endpoint out of the way. Oh. And we're going to move this here, the start, to 113, and we'll just sort of. We can just look at the track and we see that right around here, right around 177 is when something changes. Let's just take a listen to that. All right, so it's about, we've got a nice 64 bar section here. So let's just put this here, the endpoint there, and this is a 64 bar section, so we can just change this here to 64, and we're gonna rename our track once again to main 64, just letting us know that that's where that is. And so finally, we just have the end portion of our track. So we'll just rename that, or sorry, duplicate that, and we will move this here to sort of the last beat. We're gonna sort of forget about that fade out. Move this to the end of our last clip. And that gives us a nice, 32 bar section. And first we'll rename this here. We'll name this outro 32. And we're actually not going to use a follow action of next. We're actually going to use a follow action of stop. Now you could use play again, which would simply just loop this section over and over, which might be handy. But we're going to use stop, and this is a 32 bar section, so we're going to use 32. So now what we've done, if we zoom out, is if we go through these clips, you can see that we've essentially broken down the track into sections. All right. And we've labeled them in such a way that we now know what part it is and how many bars that section entails. So let's say if we listen to this clip, you can see how the follow action works and how it'll go to the next clip afterwards. So you'll notice that after this clip, the quote-unquote mini break was finished, it suddenly just jumped to the main 32. And you see how there's this blinking play button here? That means that when this is playing, this is the next clip that is going to be played. So now this is really great if you really like to mess around with Live, you like to play different parts of the tracks at different times, and it really saves you a lot of hassle from changing things on the fly. You already have it set up. But now, so this is great. Okay, we've got this track split up. Now, how do we save this so we can get back to it another time? So what we're going to do is open up our file browser, and I'll just go into this folder here. And what we're going to do is we're going to simply just right-click, and we're going to create a new project in our folder. And so we're going to call this FS D5 Mix, because why not? And what we're going to do is we're going to select our clips here, and we're just going to drag them in to this project. You can see it sort of opens up, And you see we now have this, and we'll just call this FSD5, and it's going to save our split parts. It's going to copy the file into this folder here. You can see that it just copied the MP3 from the other folder that I had it located in. And now if we drag out this .als file, you'll see that it brings with it the warping and the different clips. So it's, right now it's rebuilding a new waveform, but you'll see that now we have the identical parts to the right and the left. And you can just, save these and get rid of them and bring them back in whenever you want. And it's a really great way of using Live to mess around with it and play with the different clips that you can make out of your own tracks.